I'm Rondo Fehlberg, President of the Utah National Parks Council of the Boy Scouts of America. I'm often asked why in our neighborhood and in our scout units we call all of our high adventure experiences leaving Jerusalem. It all started a few years ago when I returned to my home ward after serving for a few years as a young single ward bishop. I sat down with my bishop and he said, "Is there something you'd like to do, Brother Fehlberg?" I said, "Well, yeah, there is." Several of my own sons had come through scouting experiences during the time I was away from the ward serving, and I'd watched their experiences, and I began to be concerned that while there was a lot of activity, very little of it seemed to me to be high adventure. A lot of expensive boats and four-wheelers and rock crawlers and snowmobiles and a lot of expensive cabins. But I knew these kids needed to get away from all of that so that they could have true high adventure experiences. The bishop said, "Well, would you like to do one now?" Well, the summer was just about to an end, but I said yes, and we began to plan. And so a couple months later, over UEA weekend, we had our first high adventure trip. We went to Zion's National Park, and we did all of the hikes there. It was a terrific experience, a hard experience. The boys, gosh, they thought they were going to die. But after it, they were just exhilarated. We did the subway, we did the Narrows, Angel's Landing, West Rim Trail. It was a tough experience, but a great one. When I got home, the bishop called me to be the varsity team coach, and he said, "You need to start planning for next summer's high adventure." We decided to climb Kings Peak. It was a great experience. And on that second afternoon, as we were up there in the Henry Basin camped, we gave each one of those boys a Book of Mormon and a name from the Book of Mormon so that they could go off and for a couple hours on their own study and find that name in the Book of Mormon and come back and tell us what that name meant in the Book of Mormon context. It was a good experience for them and a great experience for us. After those reports, we then explained to the boys that those names were part of the greatest high adventure experience in the history of the world. The Lord organized an amazing high adventure as He took Lehi and his family away from the Jerusalem of Jeremiah and the other prophets who were giving such warnings about what was happening there, but the Lord knew. And so He took this family away and prepared them through an extended preparation hiking around the Arabian Peninsula for a real high adventure. And that's the Book of Mormon. And we taught those boys how those names fit into that great story. And that became the beginning of the tradition in our ward of leaving Jerusalem. We've called all of our high adventure trips leaving Jerusalem ever since. We've gotten better at it over the years. Now we give these young men their identity a little earlier, so they have time to study and get into character. We have them do vignettes during the high adventure that are from the time and period of the names that they carry. It's a remarkable thing. And when they're exhausted and tired, and when they've done some hard things, the Spirit can teach them, some of them for the first time in their lives. And they come home different. It's an amazing experience for a whole ward that Sunday as they come back home, and one of the leaders stands to read off the names. And with that roll call, from all over the chapel, boys and men stand one by one as their names are called. They've had a true high adventure experience. They've had a high adventure with the Lord. I'm Rondo Fehlberg, president of the Utah National Parks Council of the Boy Scouts of America. I'm often asked these days, what are you trying to accomplish with that capital campaign? That's a good question. We've embarked in the largest capital campaign in the history of the Boy Scouts of America. Well, it's the largest because we're the largest council in the Boy Scouts of America. We serve over 80,000 Boy Scouts. We've got over 40,000 volunteer leaders in this council. We've got 8 different camping properties. This is a huge council with great needs. We're up Payson Canyon here, and Maple Dell Scout Camp that's here in Payson Canyon was built in the 1960s. It's had only one small refurbishment since then, and yet it serves 2,400 boys each summer. Several hundred leaders with those boys. Well, this camp is just pretty much threadbare and used up. And these boys need a great place to have great experiences, and we owe it to them to give it to them. And so that's why we're doing this capital campaign. But when we're done, this won't be the same old Maple Dell Scout Camp. These properties will be different. We've gotten smarter over the years, and we've learned a lot about how to deliver a program to these boys in a cost-efficient and effective way. Now, the new Maple Dell will allow Cub Scouts to have a day camp there. And if they do a really good job and behave themselves well, they'll know that their den mothers are going to allow them to cross Peetneat Creek and have a run at the commissary. They'll get to hear up there on the ridge behind them as a zip line comes down that mountain. And they'll think, that's going to be me, because up there on that mountain will be the varsity scouts and the venturers having high adventure experiences, and the zip lines and cope courses and all of the high adventure activities that they'll be involved in. This will be a different camp, but it'll be one that will allow a stake president or a bishop to have all of his boys together at the same time. We'll be even able to hold wood badge classes during that same week, so that a stake president can sit down on a Thursday evening with all of the young men and gather them together and teach priesthood leadership, and also know that those young men are going to be prepared to go out and serve missions for the Lord because they had great scouting experiences.